So let's jump right in. What does ICE actually stand for? Now, on the surface, that seems like a super simple question, but the answer? Well, the answer has become one of the most loaded and misunderstood things in America today. So let's really unpack it. Okay, so literally, here it is. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It's a federal law enforcement agency, and it falls under the Department of Homeland Security. Easy enough, right? Explainer over. But of course, it's not that simple, not even close, because for millions and millions of Americans, ICE stands for something way more complicated. The name itself is now a symbol, a total flashpoint in this huge national debate. So how did a government agency get to be so controversial? To really get to the heart of it, you have to understand this one fundamental fact. The agency we call ICE, it's basically two very different law enforcement organizations with two very different jobs that have been mashed together under one roof. And honestly, this internal split is the key to understanding everything else. So let's break down these two sides of ICE. You've got the investigator and you've got the officer. And they represent two completely distinct missions that, believe it or not, are often at odds with each other. Now, check this out because the contrast here is pretty stark. On one side, you have Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI. You can think of them as the criminal investigators, the special agents chasing really complex international crimes. We're talking human trafficking, massive drug smuggling operations, cybercrime. Then on the other side, you've got Enforcement and Removal Operations, or ERO. These are the deportation officers, and their whole job is civil immigration enforcement, finding, detaining, and removing undocumented immigrants. So one side's chasing global criminals, and the other is enforcing immigration laws. Totally different worlds. And this quote just perfectly captures that internal tension. It actually comes from this wild letter back in 2018, where 19 senior HSI leaders begged to be separated from ICE. They argued that their big criminal investigations were being damaged because the public and even other agencies just confused them with ERO's really political deportation work. Their whole point was, you'd never combine the FBI with the prison system, so why are you doing it to us? So how did this kinda odd couple agency even happen? Well, its origin story is everything. See, ICE wasn't some long thought-out plan. It was forged in a moment of intense national crisis. You know what's wild is that ICE is a surprisingly new agency. It literally didn't exist before 2003. It was created in that huge government shakeup after 9/11 when they just kind of slammed together parts of the old Customs Service and the Immigration Service. For years, it flew under the radar. But then in 2017, its public profile just exploded. A new directive came down to target any person believed to be in the U.S. illegally. That was a game changer. And by 2025, a massive funding boost made it the largest federal law enforcement agency in the entire country. In that huge shift in policy, that massive expansion of power, it put ICE right in the center of a political hurricane, making it a household name and, you guessed it, a major source of national controversy. If you want to understand just how big it got, all you got to do is follow the money. By 2025, ICE's annual budget ballooned to over $9 billion. That is a ton of money, funding over 20,000 employees and a massive network of detention centers and field offices. Well, with that much more visibility came a whole lot more scrutiny, and reports and lawsuits have brought up some really serious controversies. I mean, between 2012 and 2018, the agency wrongfully detained almost 1,500 American citizens. There have been horrible allegations about conditions in detention centers, including claims of forced sterilization and more than 1,200 sexual abuse complaints filed over 7 years. Then there's the stuff in the field, like using masks in unmarked cars, leading to accusations of intimidation tactics. Federal courts have even found the agency engaged in racial profiling. The public response to all of this was, as you can imagine, fast and loud. In 2018, especially after the family separation policy at the border, the Abolish ICE movement just took off. Activists and even some politicians started calling not just for reform, but for the entire agency to be dismantled and the immigration system to be totally rethought from the ground up. So the result of all this, all the controversy, all the politics, is a public perception that is just deeply fractured. For so many Americans, how you see ICE depends almost entirely on your political party. And this poll from Pew makes that divide unbelievably clear. Just look at this. 72% of Republicans have a favorable view of the agency. But for Democrats, only 13%. That's a canyon. It has become one of the most politically polarized federal agencies in the whole country. So let's bring it all back home. What does ICE stand for? Well, it stands for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. But in the real world, it stands for national security to some people and a rogue agency to others. It's an elite criminal investigative force, and it's a deportation force. The meaning isn't really in the name anymore, it's in the eye of the beholder. And that leaves us with one last really big question. In a country this divided, what is the long-term future for an agency that was born from a crisis, is defined by a conflicting mission, and is seen through such a polarized lens? What does that future even look like?